what their party platform is, but you need to know the person. I was born in northeastern Ohio, and my parents worked. Can I take this off of here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, never mind. My parents both worked in a steel mill, and that was good work back then, but it was hard work. And so in my family, the rule was everybody had to contribute and everybody had to help because you needed to. So I think I was probably Paolo's age, 12. My brother and I decided we were going to get a job. And of course, the only job we could get at that point was selling lemonade, which really wasn't an option, or a paper route. Back when people delivered papers to your door, do you remember that? Yeah. Not the truck that drove by and threw it at your. So we got a paper route. And for those of you who know the Midwest, I will tell you it is damn cold in the winter. Delivering papers. I mean, the snow, the sleet, the rain, the humid summers. But we had to do that because my mother and father said, if you want these extras, we will provide you with the basics, with what we can provide you with. If you want the extras, you got to earn it. We're not just going to hand it over. So you'd get home from school, and you didn't, there was no snack, no TV, no video games. You came home, you put your books down, and you got your sack, and you filled it with newspapers, and you got out there and you delivered them. And then you came home and did your homework and everything else. Same thing in the winter. And on Sundays, we get up at 5 in the morning. I hated those days, I have to tell you. And especially in the winter because, we'd look outside and see the snow coming down and think, God, I think they missed their paper today. Do we, And there's always a few customers who would call you at 6 a.m. if their paper wasn't there yet. So every now and then, my father, he would take pity on us, and he would throw the papers in the back of the car and drive us from street to street, but not very often. Most times it was, what, it's your job. Get out there and do it. So that's kind of where I came from, is you want something, earn it. Don't expect me to hand it over to you just because you want it or just because you think you deserve it. And while I didn't like it as a kid, I'm very thankful as an adult that I had that because that's what we're teaching our kids as well. Going back to my parents, when I was little, before I remember, my mom and my biological father got divorced. He became an alcoholic, and he drank his paycheck instead of bringing it home. So my mom didn't have an education, so she didn't have a lot of options. And she calculated in her head like a good strategist would do, and she figured out, how am I going to get out of this? And about the time she was figuring out that strategy, the bills were piling up, and in the winter you need heat. You need gas to heat the home. And the bill wasn't paid, so the heat was turned off. And so my mother, instead of saying to the government, you need to heat my home, you need to give me something, take care of me, my mother put us to bed in snowsuits. Kept us warm, and she was a Democrat, by the way, so you'd think she would have said, give me something, right? But that's just not how she operated, and that's, though I was too little to remember it, she told me about it as a lesson. Don't sit there and say, I can't. Do something for yourself. And she did. She got a job at a steel mill, and it was good money, And back then, women weren't in management in that type of work. Women were the worker bees, and the men were in management. But she got that job, and she was able to get a divorce and stand on her own. And she would never she was fiercely independent, and just was not going to give up that ability to take care of herself and her kids, even though there were times where she could have quit working, but she didn't. And I remember one time, I was probably 13. When girls hit 13, start to get a little bit of an attitude, right? Just a little. And I said, my mom went to work in steel-toe boots, jeans, and a long-sleeve flannel shirt to to protect her arms and her legs. And I said, Mom, how come you don't go to work? Can't you get a job like the other girls' moms have where they dress like this? That's what I wanted, right? I thought that's what everybody did except for my mom. And she looked at me and she said, and she said it proudly, I might add. She didn't say it with sorrow, no sadness. She looked at me very proudly and said, I'm working like this so that you don't have to one day. So make sure you make something of your life so you don't work like a mule the rest of your life like I am. And I'll never forget that. So, and it made me think, when Marco Rubio was speaking the other night, and he said how his dad stood at the back of that bar so that he could stand at the front. That's immediately what I thought. It was my mother looking at me and saying, do something about it. Don't work like this. So, I'm here to do something about Sacramento. What we need, well, we need a lot of things actually, but let me just hit the top three. This race, you're going to get a Republican, which is great news for Republicans. But there is a difference. Excuse me for 1 minute. What we need in Sacramento are reformers. Not people who want to stand there and spout off campaign promises all day long. We hear that all the time. Aren't you tired of hearing that? I am. We need people who've actually done something. We need people who have tackled tough problems like pension reform, like I have in my city. We don't need more people who are going to stand there and scream and shout and shriek and point at a problem, but not stop long enough to actually do something about it. We need people who, there's a couple things I need to say today, and I want to make sure I don't miss them. We also need some people who understand that we do have an immigration problem, a legal immigration problem in California, who understand that it's a death knell to capitulate on this problem, and who are also willing to stand up and be counted and say how they feel about this problem. And that's something that I did with going on Fox News and telling the nation, essentially, how I felt, which a lot of people won't do. They'll tell you in private, but they won't actually do something about it. And so I had the opportunity to bring E-Verify into our city and make that mandatory. And I had some people who were upset about that, but it was the right thing to do. As opposed to someone who just shouts about it all day long. There are some people in this race who would rather, you know what, I'm taking the gloves off, I'm just going to say it. There's a person in this race who has started his own war on women, war on people who are not the average middle-aged white male, and I take offense to that. And this race isn't about gender, and it's not about your ethnicity, but we still need to have respect for that. And I feel as when you become an American citizen, a legal American citizen, you are first class. You're a first-class citizen, and that's how it ought to be. You ought not be treated any differently. But we've got some other people in this race who are going to, for an eternity, hold that against you, the color of your skin or the ability to bear children, and that's not right. The Republican Party traditionally respects people's differences, right? Mm-hmm. And isn't that what we want to do? Isn't that what we need to do to grow this party? Is to make sure everybody understands that we respect you no matter where you came from or how you got here, as long as you got here legally. And we can't have Republicans perpetuating this hate and this division in our state. It's killing us. I mean, go to a party and try to talk about some of these topics. I mean, it is so polarized. It's enough already. It's like Stu was saying, you know what? You have to reach across the aisle. Dave telling us how you can't get anything done unless you agree to work with everyone on your team. So let's stop already with the nonsense. And let's stop allowing people to do it, frankly, because when I hear somebody in the Republican Party who's saying things that make me look bad as a Republican, I stop them, and I hope you do too. You're going to correct them on the spot, just like children, or they'll keep going. So this election is about choice. It's about choosing a leader or choosing a follower. It's about choosing someone who has actually done something, or choosing someone who feels it's okay to be lawless in their behavior. And some of you know what I'm talking about. This is a true choice. So you can choose what your future is going to be in this state, but by God, don't elect someone who thinks that he's going to choose your future for you. Thank you.